Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go, Josh.
All right, Steven Soderbergh.
Yay.
This year, I mean, I was looking at it and I was like, this year is going to be a banger year. Like, I am excited about this year because we've got Steven Soderbergh, 2 Steven Soderbergh movies this year. And I did read that he just finished his third movie, or I guess he just finished filming a movie that will come out maybe this year, maybe next year, called The Christophers with Michaela Cole and Ian McKellen. So also shot in London. So, I mean, he's very prolific at this point. So that's great. I love Steven Soderbergh. I'm excited. I know that you love him as well. But we've also got movies from Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah, we've got movies from Spike Lee. So, I mean, we've got some really exciting movies coming up this year. So I think it'll be a better year than next year, hopefully. But
the new Superman and the Fantastic Four
true.
And the Thunderbolts.
Fantastic Four. I'm interested in the Fantastic Four. The new Superman looks. I have
faith.
I mean, yeah, I'm here for anything James Gunn. Even though like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was just okay for me.
Fun.
But, it was fun. Yeah, sure. But so all right. So I wanted to watch this movie, and I know you had heard of it or heard about it. But when I saw that it was Steven Soderbergh directing and David Koepp writing, I was kind of like, I'm intrigued, because David Koepp, we've talked about a lot of his films in the past, and his resume is like, he wrote Jurassic Park, Mission Impossible, Spider-Man, Panic Room, and that last one is very, I get definite Panic Room vibes from this movie, where it's kind of like, this is a movie that isn't made anymore. Very few of these movies are made, where it's an adult movie, not like adult film, but adult movie.
First thing I was going to say.
And it's a movie that they were minting money on these types of films in the 80s and 90s, and it just all went away in the 2000s. Really, once Marvel kind of started taking off in the box office, they just stopped making movies like this as much. There's movies out there, but a movie that got this type of a push, and that actually is, not a super expensive movie, but is pointed towards adults and really has no like 4-quadrant type of an appeal. They don't make these movies as much anymore, but I was excited to see that it's this movie with this writer, this filmmaker, and Michael Fassbender. I didn't know much about it. I knew that it was Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, but once everybody else starts popping in, Naomi Harris and Regé, whatever his name is, the guy from Bridgerton, I guess, is what I've seen him from. And everybody else,
Tom Burke.
Tom Burke. Oh my gosh.
He's great.
And then I watched 2 episodes of Industry, and that actress.
I'm obsessed. I am obsessed with her.
Great.
How do you say her last name? Abella? Marissa Abella?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
I'm obsessed. First of all, it was nice to have an Alicia Vikander type character in it, and I kept thinking about her, and I kept thinking, well, is it Michael Fassbender's wife? Right. And I thought, well, why not her? But obviously, for whatever reason, it's this actress, and I'm obsessed with her. Everything about her in this movie is near perfection. Her line reading is just, I think only she could have done it this way. And I can't wait to go back. I haven't seen Industry yet. It's on a list. I will eventually get there. I'm just now catching up.
There's great performances in the first two episodes. I feel like it's one of those shows that it's like, once I start going in, I will not be able to get out of it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I need to just like clear the slate and just go in. So yeah, but there's a lot of great performances in the first 2 episodes, and she does stand out. I know that she played Amy Winehouse in Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, it makes me want to see it now. I had no interest whatsoever.
I saw the trailer and it seemed very paint by numbers, and I don't know. I feel I kind of didn't want that. That actually pointed me towards Industry, and I'm glad that I went that direction as opposed to the other direction where I was just looking at the Amy Winehouse movie and nothing else. Regé-Jean Page is the actor's name that I butchered earlier. So there's it is very much a, 6-hander or whatever you want to call it. But I did want to ask you, I was expecting it to be a little bit more cinematic, and it was less that and more intrigue based and dynamics based and character based. And that was a little bit different for me. I know Steven Soderbergh doesn't shy away from that kind of a thing, but I think that since this movie was written by David Koepp and not necessarily written by Soderbergh, I think that kind of like showed its hand. And I was wondering if that made it more appealing to you, or if you were expecting something a little bit different from a Steven Soderbergh movie.
No, I got the glossy, iridescent glow of the gold of everything that he goes under a different name as a cinematographer. Have you seen
he
that?
He does, yeah.
Peter Andrews?
Says he's Peter Andrews.
Good
and
for
then
him.
He's also editing, and it's Marianne Bernard, which we've talked about in the past. Like, female editors in general are kind of like known. I mean, George Lucas's wife, Marcia Lucas, and obviously Thelma Schoonmaker, who Martin Scorsese has worked with for decades. But I think that must be why he goes as Marianne Bernard as an editor. But I think he definitely had fun with the cinematography, and I did see that like halation. I thought he shot on film. This is the crazy part. I thought he shot on film with this movie because of that kind of glow, the type of glow you're talking about in the multiple dinner scenes where there's those lights. There's those lights, like glowing globes in the center of the table in those dinner scenes. And there's that glow around them, and it kind of reaches over into and kind of occludes the face of the characters.
Yeah, a couple times.
Or even like the high-rise floor-to-ceiling windows, you kind of see that kind of glow kind of cover over a lot of the actors' faces and just actors as they're moving around. And that is inherent to film, especially older film, that's called halation, where there's like a halo that's associated with how the film is exposed. And there's ways to fake that in digital filmmaking, and it turns out that's what Steven Soderbergh did. He faked it. So he did shoot it digitally, and then he made it look however he wanted it to look. So,
amen.
Yeah, and it looks great.
He's using his blue, browns, and golds, and I'm fine. I'm here for it. I would be disappointed if he didn't. It is a signature. It works. It adds to the characters. It adds to the atmosphere. It adds to the narrative. It adds to every single film he does. Traffic is a prime example of that. They're the three separate main storylines that eventually blend together are all shot in certain colors.
Well, he treated the film in that way. It was all shot like straight, and then he touched it up, and that was film, and he put it through different baths, different chemicals, and that's what caused the blue tinges or the orange tinges or the I
love it. No, I've come to know that there are certain directors, I don't care what the subject matter is, I don't care what the film is, I don't care what the narrative it is, I don't care. If it's them, I'm in. And I was obsessed with Aaron Brockovich when it first came out, just because the performances are stunning and the idea of the movie, David and Goliath type thing. Albert Finney is excellent. Julia Roberts is excellent. And he was nominated twice that year for Best Director for Aaron Brockovich and Traffic, and won Traffic. One for Traffic. Now Traffic
he lost to himself.
I love that. How was the competition, honey? It was pretty tough. There's this guy Steven Soderbergh, and I was worried about him. His movie Aaron Brockovich won. I was worried, but guess what? Traffic did not win Best Picture, and it has been debated whether or not it should have or not over the years, and Gladiator did, but that's okay. So I'm in. When I hear his name, I'm in. I've even seen that weird, strange Julia Roberts, Blair Underwood film where she wears the short bob. I don't remember much about it.
Was it Full Frontal?
Yes. I
started watching that like years ago, but
didn't completely work. But I got lucky. Somehow the universe, whatever the cosmic forces, or just an instinct that I have, leads me into the theater to see these films of these filmmakers before they're ever known. I saw Sex, Lies, and Videotape way before he was anything. And I just went, Soderbergh, he's interesting. Okay, those characters are interesting. It's unusual. It's uncomfortable. It's not like anything I've ever experienced before. David O. Russell was another one with a movie called Spanking the Monkey, which is Yorgos Lanthimos, because of you. There's just certain directors that I hear their name and I'm in. I will watch it because something about what they do is worth the time. And this definitely was worth the time. And it's a 90-minute film, so it doesn't take long. And I've seen it twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I was wanting to make sure I understood everything. It's a very simply complex film. It's very simple on the surface, but there's a lot of little things that are going on. And then you mentioned it earlier about character development. There are things you learn about these characters that are not a necessity to this narrative. They just don't need to exist. But yet, when you figure out why they do exist, you're like, oh, that's clever that's written in there. And you learn stuff about what is the young lady's character's name that we were just talking about. I just went off the page.
Clarissa.
You're learning stuff about her and you're going, what's that got to do with this? What's that got to do with that? And by the way, important side note, I think we need to say spoilers up front. Because I am going to drop something that I would not want to know about if I heard it before I saw the film. It's just the way it works with me sometimes. And I also think that I don't think you can talk about this film without spoiling it, no matter what the minute detail is. So I say, see this film. If you haven't seen this film, turn off the podcast, go watch the movie, come back and let us know what you thought. Because it's just so intriguing how intricately woven it is. But you're learning things about Clarissa, and all of a sudden you're like, well, what's that got to do with that? What's that got to do with that? And then you learn it has nothing to do with anything because she has nothing to do with anything, really. And that's brilliant. The fact that it's not a red herring, it's not anything other than a character that completes other people's storylines. And she comes across for me as one of the most interesting characters in the movie. Just like I said earlier, there's something about her line readings that are just impressive. And Naomi Harris, how I just don't understand how she does what she does. There's a scene at the very end of the film when the gun is exposed and she has to lean over out of the way. And just the way she handles it is so realistic. I was like, not her. Please not her. Because I thought the way that it was shot, she was going to get killed. And just the way it's shot and the way she moves, I was like, oh no. And they're all kind of innocent per se. They're all trying to do the right thing with the exception of one of them. And also he thinks he's doing the right thing, even though he's getting some gains out of it that would connotate that it wasn't the right thing to do. So anyway, I loved it. I love everything about it. I found it intriguing. I found it was tight and no wasted moments. I thought the hour and a half was going to go by so quickly that it was going to dissipate the idea of the movie for me. It didn't. All it did is my whole day was about thinking about it and going back and watching it a second time after I got off work tonight before the podcast was intriguing because all of my thoughts were confirmed that I understood exactly what was going on. I understood exactly what was happening. And I had these instinctual moments, like when he's fishing the first time. And I was like, oh, he's fishing through the evidence. Oh, that's clever. I mean, and he throws the whatever you call it, the line out. He casts the line, and as he's reeling it in, he's remembering what happens at the dinner party. Casts it out again. He reels it in. It's a different character he's thinking about. It's a different look of a character that he's thinking about. I was like, that's clever. And then when he's talking to the Bridgerton guy, sorry, can't think of it. What's his character's name?
Regé-Jean Page.
Yes, but James
Stokes.
Colonel James, which he corrects that guy when they're on the boat together and they have their little conversation closer to the end of the film, and then his line, a fish bites on it and takes the line, and what does Michael Fassbender say? He says, let him run with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so clever because that's what he's doing to that character. It's well done.
Yeah, and I think that the crazy part about this movie is that I think that the star of the movie is actually David Koepp. I think he wrote a really, really good movie.
I agree.
And it's something that I could see as an acting study, or as there's multiple scenes. Like when you break it down, if you start breaking down like the different segments of the movie, there's only like a handful of scenes, and the scenes go on for a decent amount of time, but they don't feel stuffy, and they don't feel over long. They feel like we're getting as much information as we need to move on. And, watching it's interesting because we're going kind of backwards from, I'm used to watching shows like Killing Eve. And we've been watching Slow Horses. They're about spies or assassins or whatever. They're about things that allow for you to spend more time with these characters and then extend, the character development. But I think David Koepp did a really good job of making character development for multiple characters in a short period of time.
In a line.
And that allows for like those different scenes allow for us to understand each of these characters. But what gets eliminated is the action scenes. There's a car blows up, that's kind of like the action scene. But like one of the most like actiony scenes is Cate Blanchett buying a coffee and getting a little napkin and putting a note in there,
sugar,
it's like
a little package of sugar.
Packet of sugar, and putting a note in there. I mean, like, the kind of like passing of notes between each. I mean, that's like the one of the most action-packed portions of the movie, but I didn't feel like I was being shortchanged in the film. Like, I mean, if a Mission Impossible movie was like that, I'd be like, whoa, what's going on here? Where's the biplane? Why aren't we in space?
Where's the mountain? Where's the tower? Where's the building? Where's the motorcycle? Where's all of that stuff?
Why are we not?
Train?
Why are we not? Parachuting out of planes and stuff here.
Right.
But yeah, so
for real.
but this movie, like, I think you put Michael Fassbender, you put Cate Blanchett in there, and then you can give them complex lines. You can also give Michael Fassbender a character that is very dry, like super dry. I mean, accountant dry. And I know they're coming out with The Accountant 2, which I'm not that excited about. The Accountant was a good movie. I really enjoyed The Accountant.
Yeah.
But The Accountant 2 seems a bit like, kind of like, oh, guys, geez.
We saw it.
Do we need to really go back? Like,
that's what I'm saying. We saw it.
It was a curio. It was a nice little, interesting piece. And now we got to go back. It's
one of his best performances, and so he probably wanted to recreate it. So
yeah, I guess. And you got John Bernthal, who's great, and I'm excited to see him.
Is Anna Kendrick's in it though?
I don't know. I haven't seen her in the trailers. It's basically Ben Affleck and John Bernthal just kicking ass. So
sure, why not?
It's like, okay, fine. But
well, if they're trying to do a born supremacy or born identity thing, that and there's been too long of a gap, and that movie really didn't hit. It hit and then snowballed.
Yeah, it hit on like Netflix or wherever it was afterwards.
People are like, well, sure, why not? And they were like, wow, this is great.
No. It is great.
Yeah.
It's so good. But anyway, so I think that you put Michael Fassbender in this role, and we just saw him in The Killer, where he was a very clinical actor.
This is different, though.
And he hasn't acted for 5 years or whatever before that. So now we see that, and we see this. And okay, why is this different then?
Because you see him trying to control his emotions. You don't see his emotions already being controlled. He's already controlled in The Killer. He's already that was the first thing he's done in 5 years.
Yeah, he did a bunch of like F1 racing. 4 years. I don't know. He had like the last thing he'd done before that was Days of Future Past, I think. X-Men
really?
Days of Future. Yeah.
Well, that might burn you out right there. Bryan Singer and all those people. He's probably like, I'm done. I'm tired of you, Hollywood.
I'll go race cars for a while.
Right. I'm Paul Newman. This one I thought, oh, okay, is this going to be his new niche? Is this his thing now? And I'm fine with that. And I was going along with it, but there are moments where the facade breaks and it breaks hard when he realizes that he was set up, and he's in the conference room when Pierce Brosnan is like, there's an enemy in our house. You can see he's holding it together. Even his hand shakes when he pours his drink. And so it's different, in my opinion. I see how people could see it as similar, and it is very similar. There's something different about it. You can tell he's emotionally connected to the people that he's talking to, regardless of the situation or regardless of their relationship. He has, you could tell he has a relationship with the guy in the beginning of the film. You could tell they've had a long time. He says to him, how's your wife doing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe if you go home right now. He cares about these people. So just because he's really good at being the best at being black bagged, doesn't mean that he doesn't feel and think the way that a normal human being would think and feel in those situations. It's just he has learned over so many years how to control it. But it does get the best of him here and there. And if it didn't, I would agree with you. It's too close to the killer performance to be distinguishable. But because he does, and because he allows, even when he says to Clarissa later on, you're the best at fooling a polygraph, and you're here for no reason. You've done nothing. There's a little bit of giddiness in his voice. There's a little bit of, he loses the fact that he is the best at what he does. So you can tell that he is trying to be the polygraph giver throughout the film, but it breaks here and there, and it goes up and it goes down, and then he's hiding and he's holding on to it in certain places. And so yeah, I see why that it would be similar, but it is nuanced in a different way.
Yeah, I could see that he's a character who will not let go, and the character trait that they give him is that, his dad cheated on his mom and he could not let that go. He essentially ruined his dad's life because of that, because he could not let it go.
He did
ruin his dad's life, and potentially his mom's life. I don't know. They don't really expand upon that, but ultimately he couldn't let it go. Therefore, he had to call his dad out, and his dad lost his job and lost his marriage, and that's what he's known for. It's somewhat basic, where it's like, oh, the guy ruined his dad's life. Oh, and by the way, he also does polygraph tests for spies. So that part is pretty rote, I guess, but they don't spend too much time on that. The intricacies of the film and of the plot are that they don't have anybody to grow old with other than other people in their industry, because you can't act like you have a normal life if you are a spy. So you can't hide your spyness from other people. And we've seen movies where people try to do that. True Lies is one of them, where Arnold Schwarzenegger his wife doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And of course he gets in trouble for that, and she gets sucked into it. And not only is it just him and Cate Blanchett, it's the other two couples that get involved in this too. And so really that kind of group of six, that dinner of six, becomes a lot more interesting both times they get together due to those dynamics. And so that's the thing I haven't seen before. We've seen so many movies, and we've kind of seen, I don't want to say we've seen it all, but we've seen a lot. So, if it's a spy movie, we're used to seeing spy movies. We're not used to seeing spy movies that are essentially character pieces that are round table discussion chamber pieces,
as they manipulate each other's relationships to get what they want. Because Cate Blanchett says that at the end, I get what you're doing. You saved a lot of people, but do never mess with my marriage again. It's crazy that we're even living in a world where human beings need to have these things happen, and that we cause these to happen. It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, I did. The one thing I noticed throughout the film was the score, which was, they had a couple of needle drops in there, but really it was mainly the score, which was unnerving, and it was really well done. It's David Holmes, who he did Ocean's 11. He also was the composer for Killing Eve too, which bringing all that back. I don't know if. Obviously Steven Soderbergh has worked with him a bunch, and Soderbergh worked with him on No Sudden Move. So he's kind of worked with him throughout his each of their careers. But yeah, that was something that definitely stood out for me in this film. It was very digital and very unnerving. It wasn't soothing. The opposite of soothing. So, yeah, it was
Alexa,
good.
what is the opposite of not soothing? Yeah, it was. And it comes in and creeps in at places, and then it's very overt in places. And it's electronic, but not. It's somewhere mixed of two. I actually noticed it, and I was like, oh, I'm proud of myself. I noticed it. I noticed it the first time, but I noticed it because it unnerved me in places. And I was like, okay, calm down. And it starts from the very beginning of the movie. Hey, speaking of which, is that one shot in the beginning of the film?
It is.
Okay. Do you
when
know
he goes down and meets
the secret?
The guy?
Yeah.
He goes down and meets the guy and comes back up. Yeah.
Yeah. He reveals the secret of who it is at the very beginning of the film. Did you notice that?
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. After they have their conversation, and the guy takes the biggest hit off of a vape pen I've ever seen in my life, by the way, and the smoke goes over his head. No. When they're talking, he was like, yeah, I think you need to go home. That would help, blah, 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 blah. And as Michael Fassbender is walking away, the camera pulls back, and there's a guy standing in the shadow right there.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
And he walks away, and the guy's watching him.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you watch it again, you know who it is.
You know the character who does that big pull on a vape pen is played by Gustav Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Guess who his brothers are? Guess who his dad is? So that's Stellan Skarsgård's son.
Well, he's good too.
And he has like 2 scenes.
Who cares? He's very good in it.
No, he is good. Yeah.
He's very good in it. That scene he handles. Listen, there's no small parts. If that was me, I'd be super proud of myself that I pulled all of what I pulled out of there. You can see he's pained by the fact that he is who he is, and he tries to make that misogynistic excuse about men, well, at least men like me, because, you know.
Like us. He says like us.
He does say like us, but then he takes that back because we find out very carefully or very quickly that Michael Fassbender is monogamous, and he kind of sort of tries to stab at him about that, which is a character development moment where you find out that Michael Fassbender is monogamous and that he loves his wife, which is important because when you're hearing those things, you're like, okay, is he? Okay, yeah, maybe he is. Okay, that's really great. But you're not realizing that's part of the narrative. That's unusual. And to have these small things thrown in there. And you also learned that the guy with the vape pen, the Skarsgård guy, what was his name?
What was it's Gustav Skarsgård.
Yeah, but what was his character's name?
Character's name?
Philip Meacham. You know he's a good guy who's just caught up in his own stuff and that he's got a good heart. And when he says to her, maybe this weekend, he doesn't expand on what he says to his wife. He just says, maybe this weekend. And what you don't know is there is not another weekend in his future. There's not another 2 minutes in his future. And so that takes a skilled actor to have subtext in your reading of the lines. There's subtexture there. You can tell he loves his wife. So yeah, it's a small part, but listen, he did his job, and you know what? Whatever, genetics. I hate people.
Fine, people. Whatever.
I'm not mad. I'm disgruntled. My name is Paul Skarsgård. I know.
How many more kids does Stellan Skarsgård have?
And they're all tall and beautiful and all do naked scenes. I'm mad at them. There's like 10 of them now, aren't there? Have you ever seen that interview? Have you seen that interview with Kieran Culkin? It was on some journey for the Oscar, on some path for the Oscar this year, when he was asked on the red carpet about, do you think the Culkin brothers could take on Skarsgård? No. And he's like, they're huge. Have you seen them? And there's like 10 of them. And now I get the joke. I didn't realize there were so many of them, but good for them. Happen. Hey man, what it takes to put the work in, they've all gotten it and they all do it. And so, good for him. I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to throw any kind of shade, especially on a James Bond, but I felt like Pierce Brosnan was kind of in a different movie.
He did do some weird choices. He made some weird choices.
Yeah, and I mean, it only had like 3 scenes, but it seems like he was trying really hard, whereas everybody else wasn't, and that was a little weird to me because I think he's good. I have no problem with Pierce Brosnan. I even liked him in Black Adam. I thought he was fine in Black Adam.
He's the best thing in that.
Well, there you go. So I mean, that was the most recent thing I've seen him in, but yeah, it just seemed a little, I don't know, it just seemed a little weird, but.
I think, yeah, I agree with you, but it didn't take me out. I just thought he was the bitter, disgruntled, yet that word again, older guy. And by the way, when she says to the guy at dinner, her boyfriend, why I like old men, he's like 40. I was like, okay, what?
Oh, Tom
He's
Burke,
like,
yeah.
he's like 42. I was like, okay, hon.
But also, she's probably like 24. I mean,
but when you were 24, when you looked at somebody at 40, did you think they were old?
Oh yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
I never thought about, I mean, I remember old people and I remember being around old people, but I never thought of myself as, oh, I'm young and they're old, or oh my God, they're old. My mind just doesn't think that way. Maybe that's why I look as young as I do, because I didn't warp my brain like everybody else did. Anyway, I understand what you're saying about Pierce Brosnan. I understand it. It's a really tricky part because he has to be the bad guy who turns out to be the bad guy. And so that's really a tough thing. And I think his best scene, and he's got 3 or 4 scenes, I think his best scene is in the sushi bar.
It's the fish scene, yeah.
The fish scene, which is weird. Is that a live fish?
I didn't know that was a thing. It makes sense that it's illegal because the fish is still alive.
Why?
Because rich people are bored. That's why.
Ugh.
Rich people are bored. So you can't just eat a fish. You got to eat a live fish.
But aren't there people who eat live octopus and live things?
Sure. Well, I mean, Old Boy has a scene where he's eating a live octopus.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing. Anyway, I guess maybe it's just like inhumane or whatever PETA was mad at.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and it's disgusting and gross. And I'm not saying
it is also
it's okay.
disgusting.
I'm not saying it's okay. I'm
cook
just
your
saying
food
why.
Or prepare it properly. Come on.
Well, I mean, what do they do for sushi? They probably just cut its head off and throw it in the thing.
But they prepare it properly, though. It's a little different.
Yeah, okay. I think it's disgusting. I would never want to see something moving around on my plate to eat it, and it's gross, and it adds to his character. But I'm not necessarily thinking that should be illegal, but whatever. That's probably a slippery slope. But yeah, that's his best scene because he actually is rattled. He actually is. You hear him clinking the chopsticks together like he's nervous, and when he goes to eat, and then when he's realizes he's done, she knows what's going on, you can hear him clinking it together. Yeah, I don't think he's in a different movie. I just think he's a character that is not, we don't know him like we know the other people by time he comes into the film. We have an intimate relationship with all 6 of those characters just because of that dinner, and then later on because of the dinner again, and because Cate Blanchett is just the sexiest woman alive. She's just slinky and just amazing. And speaking of a Pierce Brosnan scene, when she goes into the elevator and the door opens and the way she leans back is so great. That's such an incredible choice. It's such an incredible choice. She didn't have to do that. I mean, the character didn't have to do that. And the way she does it is in the same kind of way that she just does everything else. The way she moves her hair, the way she puts her clothes on, the way that she drinks her wine. It's very interesting. I didn't forget it was Cate Blanchett, but I kept having to remind myself it's Cate Blanchett because obviously you can tell, but she does such different things. Her cadence and her voice is weird. We've seen similar things, but it's very specific.
But you're right. It is. It's kind of like she's using a scalpel with this character because what was the last thing I saw her in? Tar. Okay, well, now what was she doing in Tar? And how is this character similar? And it's not. They're both characters that are confident in what they do, that are very adept at what they do, that are professionals, that are dry, that are also very they are experts at their thing, and they know it, and they embody that, but they are totally separate, and the emotions are different, are put in different places. And they're both emotional characters, but her emotion is packed away in a certain, and it does come out, and it's especially in those bedroom scenes where, it's kind of like, would you kill for me? I would kill for you, that kind of a thing.
You have to watch that scene again.
Really?
Yeah, because she does the most amazing thing. I don't remember what the dialogue is. She says, I will kill for you. And then she stops. And she turns and she goes, you know that, right? And that little turn is so descriptive and so interesting. It's a small minor thing, and I noticed the first time that she did it, but that break and that pause, and it's a really brief period in between, and it's a really brief pause. Only a skilled actress on her level could do things like that, and it's purposeful.
And it pays off at the end because she does kill for him.
Yes.
Because if she did not kill the Regé John Page character,
Colonel.
Yeah, the Colonel, then her husband would go to jail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does totally pay off.
Well, everything does, because the very first time I saw the film, which was yesterday, and I thought, wait a second, how smart is Cate Blanchett's character supposed to be? How smart is, wait a second, what is her name? Catherine. How smart is Catherine supposed to be? She would just haphazardly throw a movie stub away. That's on purpose. Yeah. I didn't know if she did it on purpose, but that was on purpose. And what is so good when they're in the movie, watching the movie, and he kind of turns and watches her, she does not. Oh, no.
Initially, she doesn't react.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And he does, and so does the rest of the audience, and that's what pulls his attention. And then he's watching her, and then she does react organically. And I was like, is she this slick? Is she really the one? Is this how this is going to play out? But I kept feeling like the screenwriter wanted us to believe they were in contradiction to each other at that point. And I was like, she's smarter than this. And then the movie stub ticket pays off later on a couple of times. And then she says to him at the end, why didn't you come to me? And he's like, basically, I knew it wasn't you. You're not, come on. You're not that lazy. You're not that, you're intelligent. You would not have left. If you were trying to cover your tracks about going to the movies, you would have not left the stub in the trash can by the thing where I'm going to put your clothes, and I'm going to pick your clothes up. Another character development thing, how he's always cleaning up, and she's like, don't worry about it. He's like, no, okay, sure, no problem. I won't worry about it, as he's bringing it to the dumpster, the hamper dumpster. So yeah, it's really smartly done. The whole screenplay is, I'd like to read it. I'd like to read it to see if I'm missing. I don't think I am. But
I think, I mean, as an actor and then also now a director, in your case, you would, that would be one of those things where, like I did in high school, I was like hanging around all the actory people, and they would lift scenes from, whether it's a monologue or whether it's like a 2-person dialogue scene, they would lift those things from different plays or whatever. It seems like this type of a movie, like even the Regé Jean Page and Naomi Harris kind of like talk back and forth in the office. That dynamic changes 3 or 4 times, where she's like, okay, we're done. And he's like, all right, let's go over on the couch. And she's like, wait, no, don't do that. What are you talking about? And he's like, we totally just did this, so
there and there and there.
And so
yeah.
Their dynamic and their relationship is being revealed to us a little bit at a time. And that's happening throughout the film, and it's done in an engaging way. So it's not boring. It's a nuanced screenplay. I keep coming back to the screenplay. It's a very precise screenplay, and it doesn't need
an
a lot.
hour and a half.
Yeah.
There's a lot that happens in that hour and a half, but I also think that was really smart. I think he wrote the screenplay and it turned out to be an hour and a half. It wasn't like a goal. It wasn't anything he set. He didn't say, okay, I need to do this in 90 minutes. He didn't. I think he wrote the script and it turned out to be 90 minutes. That's it.
But it may have been designed that way though, because when you think about it, like, and that's why I keep going back to Panic Room. Panic Room was also written by David Koepp, David Fincher movie. You've got like a steady hand at the tiller and a director, and in this case, editor also. So you now have somebody who's like, here's what's on the page. You're going to shoot it. You're going to cut it. And it's going to probably come out to a very palatable amount of time where you can pack as many screenings as you want in the theater. You take up one screen and you can get an extra screening at the end of the day by having a 90-minute movie.
So do you think that those, because we talked about this before, we talked about directors that give themselves constraints. We talked about them giving themselves borders to where this is the parameters of the idea and it can't go outside of this.
Yeah.
Do you think that when David Koepp, who I call Koepp, by the way, because I didn't know how to pronounce his name until you said it, do you think that that constraint allowed him to be so precise and only put in what was necessary and only put in what we needed to see and hear versus some exposition about somebody else or the reason why what's his name is not married anymore, even though he has a kid who's emotionally distant from blah, 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 blah. Whatever it may be, do you think those constraints held him in? And that's why you would put yourself into a 90-minute bracket? Or
well, I think there's multiple things going on there, probably. I do know that there are scenes that were cut because I did read that there was a sex scene that was cut between Regé-Jean Page and Naomi Harris. And it was alluding to, like, that scene that they allude to in dialogue. He's like, Soderbergh was going to shoot. Maybe he didn't shoot it, but it was in the screenplay. So there was going to be time associated with that. And I don't know if they either didn't shoot it or if they shot it and they decided not to do it. And they went back and did the scene where they explained that they had sex in her office. So either way, it doesn't really matter. That's a scene that is not in the film. Secondly, I know that David Koepp said that he had this idea when he was writing Mission Impossible, and he's done research throughout, and that was 94 or something. That was 20 years ago, 95, 20 years ago. So 30 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Good God, I'm old. Okay, anyway.
I was in LA.
Really? Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's about Independence Day time.
Yeah.
So yes. So that was 30 years ago. So he's had time to stew on this for 30 years, and he's done more research since then and all that stuff. But I can imagine that, it's like you're trying to craft a screenplay over 30 years. There's going to be multiple instances of that where it's going to be bloated and it's going to be contracted. And he's probably like gotten to the point where he got to the essence of it because he's been over it so many times that it's like you said, it's like you say just what you need to say, just when you need to say it, and you move on. And
you see just what you need to see and you move on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe screenwriters should take 30 years to write stuff.
Well,
maybe
the luxury of
Oppenheimer is 45 minutes long 30 years from now.
But in the interim, he's doing like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I mean, so it's like he's making money, so it's kind of like he's not going to spend 30 years writing one screenplay. So he's also
you're talking about the Indiana Jones. What?
Yeah, he wrote that, and he wrote the Dial of Destiny too. He started writing it and then Mangold rewrote it. So, but
the fantastical part about Crystal Skull is just a bit too much for me to grasp.
Well, it's also George Lucas kind of like pushed it on that. So
what a shock!
Either way.
What a shock. Aliens. Yeah. Lucas.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good for them.
So yeah, I think that you're right. He's had a lot of time to stew on it, but this is the most boiled down part of that film, which it's great. And actually Steven Soderbergh's a great person to make this movie because he's all about efficiency. I mean, the guy does not hire cinematographers or editors. He's like, nope, I could do it all. I'm fine.
AKA Sean Baker, who just won 4 Oscars.
That's
so
true.
Seems to work.
And Quentin Tarantino's done that too. I mean, he's kind of transitioned into that now too, where he's his own cinematographer. It makes
sense. It makes sense. I think that you do need an outside opinion that you trust to say, yeah, that's a bit much. Oh, why? Because of this, this, and this. Oh, I didn't even see that. You know, you need an outside. Then again, I can see why you want your vision. I can understand why you have something in your head and it needs to be what's in your head and all else is, that's that. Yeah, we'll try that. No, it's not going to work.
It makes me wonder why like the heavy-handed directors that we talk about all the time, whether it's Stanley Kubrick or David Fincher, like those guys are heavy-handed. Like they have a vision and that vision is going to hit the screen and you better get on board. And if you don't, I will fire you. And that's actually what David Fincher did on Panic Room. He fired Darius Kanji, who's a very famous cinematographer, and got Jeff Cronenweth to come in and finish the movie. And Jeff Cronenweth is great, but like he fired a world-renowned cinematographer because they didn't get along. And so, you know, it is what it is. So I could see Steven Soderbergh being like, what's the point?
But
you
that's
know, why.
But
yeah.
You told that story, and I don't mean you told it like this on purpose, but that story you just told comes across that Fincher's a bad person because he fired somebody. I'm not saying you meant that.
I didn't mean it that way, but it just is what it is.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that is truly what it is, because Fincher is a personality. He is a tough nut. But it's his film. It's his vision, and who knows why? Maybe they came to a crossroads, and the cinematographer, the original cinematographer, went, "Oh, but wait, I thought," and he goes, "No, this is it." And he goes, "But I thought, well, maybe we should just part ways." Who knows how that breaks down? Then again, Fincher comes across as the type of person who's like, "What? You don't get it? This is it. You're fired." You know, it's like when they're playing that DVD extras of Panic Room, when they're all playing basketball.
Yeah,
and he's like, "I'm gonna go work." You know, he's like, let me be social, not be, you know, like I have some form of.
He's like, I'm not a psychopath, but I still need to work.
He is definitely sharp.
Yeah.
But I
get it. I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm just saying that, like, but I can see how
myself.
I can see how Steven Soderbergh would just be like, I've done it. I've worked with cinematographers. It's been great, but I'll take care of it. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, I could see that. Same thing with editing. And I think it's worked for him. The thing that I love about Steven Soderbergh is that he's not afraid to take chances, whether it's like shooting movies on iPhones or, you know, dealing with Netflix directly, which, I mean, you know, other people have done, but or releasing movies in various ways. I think he released something on like in multiple chunks on different platforms. I mean, he's figured out a Mosaic, I think, was something that he did on some sort of, I don't know, it was YouTube or what it was. But anyway, he's done different things, and some of it's worked and some of it hasn't. And sometimes he's done TV. He did Behind the Candelabra, which is a TV movie.
Brilliant.
He did The Nick, which is just a regular TV show, but he shot all of it. And so he's not afraid. Like, he's a creator.
He's a storyteller. He's a storyteller.
And that's what he is. So he's not afraid to just be, I mean, that's where I think there's a difference between Steven Soderbergh and Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino is a director. He has reverence for directors, and that is what he wants to be. He is a director. He's a writer-director, but he's a director. So that is what he wants to be. Whereas I think Steven Soderbergh just is interested in art.
He wants to tell the story.
Yeah, let me do art, and I will do art.
Can you imagine Steven Soderbergh, Quentin Tarantino, if Kubrick was still alive, all these director writers who wanted to be editors, who tried to do it and did do it and were over heavily handed about it and pretended that they had an editor even though they took over and blah, blah, blah. And then along comes Sean Baker, and he gets all 4 of the Oscars for all of those things. And they'd be like, we were right here the whole time. We did this too.
But see, Sean Baker did it his way, and he did it with no money, and he did it on his own, and, you know, was shooting restaurants on the boardwalk and then walking in afterwards and saying like, hey, you guys are a part of a movie. Will you sign all these releases? Like, that's the way that he makes movies. So, and that's nothing wrong with that, but it's different than a Stanley Kubrick literally making a whole hotel inside of a movie studio. So,
yeah. But when you get what they get, it doesn't matter in the end. It doesn't matter how big the hotel is or how small the car is that Anora ends in. It doesn't matter. And I, of course, texted you after watching Anora for a second time, and I was like, I think it's a modern day masterpiece, but I'm a little bit cautious to say it just because what do you always say? The newness or the shine is not off the coin yet. So man, I was afraid. I was like, is this film? Why is this film's becoming divisive? Some people are really not liking this movie. Yeah. Even a couple of my friends who I really honor their I was shocked. They were like, what's with this movie? But at the same time, I was confident that I was not surprised what happened at the Oscars happened. And I just quietly went, well, maybe it's not a movie for you. Maybe it's not. I didn't defend it. I didn't try to explain my take on it. Here's what I saw. But, and then I saw it a second time and I was like,
yeah. And for me, like it's the recency bias thing that really gets me away from being like, oh, well, this is one of the greatest films of all time or whatever. But then it's like, I watched Parasite and then I watched it again and then I watched it again and then I watched it again. And then I waited a couple of years and I watched it again. And it's kind of like, tell me where it doesn't fit into that conversation. So I've only seen
worried about
once.
saying that. You were worried. Yeah, you were worried. Recency bias. That's what I was trying to think of. But I understand that. My fear is watching it a second time and seeing something I didn't see, or I saw something the first time that I think I saw, and I thought I felt, and maybe I just was. I don't know. I don't know why I would think a second time. I don't know. You see things differently a second time. I actually saw things clearer. And I saw her performance is going to kill me. Her performance is so, and it's hard to say, subtle, because she's such a bombastic character. Yep. There are scenes where they're driving in the van or driving in the car and the shot's on the whole car, but she's over here in the corner. And there's a reason she won the Oscar. There's a reason why she won the Oscar. And they're subtle. She's got these, and we talked about this on the podcast, not to do an Nora part 2, but I remember the Las Vegas scene where he loses $22,000 and the shot is of her. And she's like, that's what I made in the last 6 months. Like, what? And that look. And then she's like, oh, well, okay. And it's amazing. So anyway, enough of that.
No, I mean, you're right. I don't think this movie necessarily the Black Bag reaches to the heights of that type of film, but it doesn't. That's the good part, is that it doesn't need to, and it doesn't. This is a movie I think that's going to do very well on streaming, and I think that is going to, it will stay in the conversation for a while because it will be a nice, interesting analysis of relationships. And
so 2 things. No, do I think it's a masterpiece? I don't know what that means. I just said it because I think Anora might be a masterpiece. Do I think Black Bag? It doesn't matter. It lit me up. It had me thinking. It had me intrigued. It had me following everything. That it doesn't matter whether or not it ends up being this great thing that makes $350 million at the box office. It matters not to me. It's an intriguing story along the line. Speaking of which, what were we saying about Stranger Darling? Strange Darling. I always say Stranger for some reason. Strange Darling. What were we saying that nobody has heard of this movie? How come they're not talking about it? Then I saw somebody at a premiere, and they were asking people what their favorite films were for 2024, and 3 of them. And Seth Rogen was one of them.
Hey.
Was one of them who said Strange Darling is a film that I just kind of stumbled upon, and how people are not talking about it. I was like, wait a second. We just said that. I was like, and there were like 3 of them on the red carpet, and I think they were different premieres, and they were asking these questions. They asked what your favorite 4 movies of all time are at some of them, and this was what was something in 2024 that kind of got missed, and 3 people mentioned that movie, and I was like, it's coming.
Yep. It's on streaming now, so that'll work.
It's coming. Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good place to end it, I think. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. And we're on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.